Everyone knows the Titanic hit an iceberg, but almost no one knows what happened during the next 2 hours and 40 minutes. The truth is far more terrifying than most people realize.
By April 1912, society had reached a peak of confidence. The industrial age had fostered a widespread belief that human engineering had finally gained the upper hand over the unpredictable forces of nature. The RMS Titanic was the physical embodiment of that belief. Stretched nearly 900 feet long, it dwarfed everything else in the harbor. Its massive decks held a diverse cross-section of the world, from wealthy businessmen to hopeful immigrants seeking a fresh start. They were all united by the exact same assurance provided by the daily press, that this ship was practically unsinkable. On April 14th, the North Atlantic was eerie in its stillness. Despite receiving multiple iceberg warnings throughout the day, the ship continued at high speed through the dark, calm waters. This absolute certainty in the ship's design had created a fatal blind spot. The crew was maintaining a pace that left them with no room for error if the environment suddenly changed. At 11:40 p.m., the lookouts spotted the danger directly in their path. The warning bell rang out, but at their current speed, the distance was already too short. The crew attempted a frantic turn, but the iceberg scraped the starboard side, tearing open compartments below the waterline and inviting the ocean inside. The physical collision was over in a matter of seconds, but as the hull was breached, the theoretical safety of the ship began to give way to a physical reality. For the passengers in the warm upper decks, the impact was almost imperceptible. Most felt only a minor jolt or a faint vibration before returning to their conversations. But beneath their feet, the situation was catastrophic. Freezing seawater was surging through the lower decks, breaching one compartment after another. When the ship's designer examined the damage, he didn't see a chance for survival. He saw a mathematical certainty. Based on the number of flooded compartments, the Titanic was going to sink. The crew began the grim task of waking passengers, but they were met with a wall of denial. Many people refused to leave their warm cabins for the freezing deck, while the ship's band continued to play music, further masking the severity of the crisis. The unsinkable reputation of the ship had become a barrier to action. Passengers hesitated to accept the danger, losing the most critical minutes they had to find a way off the vessel. As the water continued to rise, the evacuation effort hit a horrifying logistical wall. There were over 2,200 people on board the Titanic that night, a massive population relying on a ship they believed was their sanctuary. Despite the number of people on board, the Titanic carried only enough lifeboats to hold roughly half of them. That shortage was made worse by the initial denial. A chart shows the capacity of the first few lifeboats launched compared to their actual occupants. Because many still didn't believe the ship was sinking, those boats left partially empty. By 2 a.m., the deck angle had become so steep that panic finally replaced disbelief. The later boats were packed to their absolute limits as the bow began to disappear into the Atlantic. By the time the passengers realized the scale of the danger, the physical window for escape had already begun to close. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic made its final plunge. The massive steel structure broke apart under the immense pressure and vanished beneath the surface. Over 1,500 lives were lost, most to the freezing lethality of the water. When the rescue ship Carpathia finally arrived hours later, it could only pick up those few who had made it into the lifeboats. When the news reached the shore, it sent shockwaves across the globe. People struggled to reconcile the image of the unsinkable marvel with the reality of such a staggering loss of life. The disaster shattered the technological arrogance of the era, proving that no ship was beyond the reach of the ocean. In 1985, explorers finally found what remained. Resting nearly 13,000 feet deep, the wreck of the Titanic sits in total darkness, a decaying monument to that April night. Scattered personal items, like this pair of rubber shoes, serve as intimate reminders of the individual lives that were lost when human hubris met natural reality. The tragedy forced a total rewrite of maritime safety. New laws were enacted requiring lifeboats for every soul on board, and the establishment of permanent iceberg monitoring systems. Ultimately, the Titanic remains a sobering proof that, regardless of our engineering, human overconfidence remains defenseless against the indifferent forces of the natural world.